And then specifically, like your approach to, building MCP servers and what was behind that story that you published.
Okay, sure thing. So actually, my background is marketing in business. So initially, I worked in several companies, travel tech, cybersecurity for a while, logistics, e-commerce, and then I joined Apify. Actually, before that, during the whole AI revolution, I figured, okay, it's time to get more technical because I could see, AI was going to be the disruption um, or the critical disruption of our time. So I figured, okay, and yeah, I found this great as part of. Actually, I was also doing a podcast. I'd used Apify before in the past, and I was like, okay, they have a lot of cool actors and tools. I could do them in my podcast, and then there was an opening for a product marketing for Apify. So I was the PMM for AI tools, and as part of that, I think it was in late 2025, when the whole MCP protocol came up. And I think, Apify was really one of the like innovators in that area. So we got into the bandwagon right away with the MCP server. It grew pretty well, actually. I think on Cloud Desktop now we're number 5 in terms of usage, right? So installs for the desktop extension. So initially, last year, obviously it was a different protocol, right? We're still using Studio and local MCP servers, and then we just kind of grew with Claude, really, Anthropics, and now there are several things that we're doing with MCP. So we had our also MCP marketplace, which was launched a few months ago. Also, giving our community of developers around six. Now, actually, I think there's 13,000 community developers. So they basically create actors and MCP servers, and then they just actorize them. The way it works is everything happens in Docker, right? So we handle all the kind of the cloud infrastructure that's needed to run these actors or MCP servers in isolated sessions in Docker. And then people just integrate with us. And I think the reason why Apify is so popular is because there's so many integration points, right? So I think, if you look at whether you're using it from CLI, from N8N, or from any kind of AI company, it's very easy to integrate. You have, one token. Now there's 30,000 tools, right? Um, yeah, so that's kind of a brief on my journey.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into, I think, a couple of those points. Like, so you guys are pretty, I mean, covering the integration kind of points, with the wider conversation, people are like, everyone's MCP, and I'm an API
Yeah.
guy, so I'm like, I've been riding the API train a while. MCP is just an API to me, but this new hype train, and then as everyone started switching to skills, and then there was this kind of MCP versus CLI, but you guys seem pretty agnostic to it all and just like covering all the bases, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that we do well is the breadth. So we have several ways that developers can integrate with us. I think MCP was a natural fit for Apify because, like when you think about it, we have a lot of tools, actors, right? And every actor has its own input schemas, output schemas, and all, it requires some time to learn how to use that actor. And because MCP reads the context of each actor, it's easy for developers to kind of test like 10 different actors. Like, let's say if you're doing Google Maps scraping, uh, maybe there's like 40 or 50 options that you have. Well, if you were going to build, let's say, a tool call per option, it would take you a long while, right? But with MCP, you could do you can get your AI tool, whatever Anthropic or whatever IDE that you're using to test all these tools quickly, and then connect, and then decide, okay, this is what I want to use, and then you can obviously create something more deterministic in terms of a tool call.
Yeah, the it took me a while so my primary thing I've been doing with Apify is pulling job postings
Yeah.
for Fortune 1000 companies. And it took me a while to learn. I mean, there's like probably four or five patterns of job postings that you and you
Yeah,
need different, different actors to be able to do it. And then a couple of the actors were reliable, a couple weren't. I mean, the ones you guys
right.
produced pretty foundational. But there's a couple others like the Workday one, and you hit Workday, you need that, special thing. And so I got to where I'm like, okay, I've got like six actors that I need. And so like you guys what really caught my attention is I'm really focused on context engineering when it comes to MCP. Like how do you reduce that window down to what you need and nothing more? And you guys actors, MCP tools, you guys kind of really, and with the marketplace, it's really seems to be a perfect storm of kind of context engineering to allow you to do exactly what you need.
Yeah, that's right. And if you look at the MCP server, it it calls actors as tools, but there's also foundational tools there, right? So some of them are discover actor, find actor, fetch data set. So all of these kind of foundational tools are there to help the actual client um, use the actor efficiently, right? Or even add actor on the fly. So we're actually a dynamic tool discovery, which is not used by many people yet. It's not really integrated in many MCP servers. Still lacking in from a client compatibility, but we were kind of like the first ones to integrate it into our MCP server. Now it's getting better, so we see a lot more clients providing support for it. And actually, ours it's funny because our CEO is super technical, so he was also the one who created the MCPC protocol. I don't know if you've heard about it or not.
Sure.
So yeah, so it is actually a universal CLI client for MCP. Maybe I can share with you the GitHub repo.
Yeah.
Um, it Yeah, it's really was trying to kind of solve the issue about the different compatibility that clients have, and kind of trying to like be a Swiss Army knife to kind of plug in your client into any MCP server and discover the capability before you start testing, right?
Ah, interesting. Yeah. Oh, this
Yeah,
is
this is actually created by Jan Chern, who's the CEO.
that's funny.
Yeah, I think he vibe coded it over the Christmas break or something. Yeah,
That's that's funny. Yeah, that's cool. That says a lot about Apify, I think, right there. Um,
yeah, exactly right. I mean, it's a super technical, and I love that's what I really love about the company, right? I was never in a kind of this super technical company setting, and really like being here. As I said, I was a marketing guy, right? So now I'm vibing on cloud code for most of my time during work. So I have a bunch of like cloud agents running on my Mac Mini. So it's been quite a ride.
yeah, so I mean, speak more about that, like AI impacting things. Like what's your take on what's happened the last 2 years? I mean, 2 to 5 years, but you know,
Yeah.
it, what do you how do you see things?
Yeah, so I think like if we compare things from like 2 years ago, the target addressable market for developers have kind of just exploded, right? I mean, before maybe you had like one in a thousand, or obviously more than that, 10 in 1,000 people who were developers, but now you really can classify a lot more people as developers, right? Because I think the vibe coding revolution plus the advancement in most of these models have made it much easier for people like me to kind of and it's also not only in terms of production where you can kind of produce applications and agents, but also in kind of like development of code, right? Because now I'm learning every day from my interactions with Claude, and it's also been amazing, transformational for many people in the marketing or business oriented functions at Apify. So I'm not the exception, right? It's I think the exceptions are people who are not creating applications or agents at Apify. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting career wise. I mean, I just rolled over 50. I'm not classically trained programmer, but I've been hacking for quite a while, and but APIs are my jam. I mean, I have service-oriented architecture and then APIs for the last 16 years. It's all I just been eating and breathing. And so when I started working at Bloomberg, and Bloomberg's very siloed and just I was very public at Postman, went into the silo and didn't pay attention to the world. And I came out and the AI thing happened. And I'm like, career-wise, I'm like, wait, what the hell's happening? This is crazy. Like, I can't keep up. It's so noisy. Like my career is
Yeah,
shot, like everything. And then, got into Claude Code and just started. And then APIs for me are very much like, well, everyone should do APIs. You should have a pretty standard, clean set of APIs. And then I started seeing a lot of the, I don't know, bullshit ways people lock down their APIs and keep people from doing things and play games and 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 then I started seeing that, agents and AI is kind of forcing people to uh change and get with the program and publish, make things more accessible, whether they kind of like it or not. But I also see Apify as this kind of abstraction layer, like, oh, well, you don't have to do APIs now. You can just publish anything, and then we'll turn it into an API. Like we'll create an actor abstraction and make it so that we can actually access it and put it to work. So Claude Code plus Apify for me, and with actors is kind of this new awakening, of what's going on.
yeah, yeah. That's exactly it, right? Because I mean, usually people would have their code siloed somewhere, but once they publish it into Apify, as you said, it's like an abstraction layer. It gives you access to millions of users and also the integrators, right? That's another key part, because it's super easy to integrate once you publish on Apify. So it gives you kind of this market reach and visibility.
What about the marketing side? Like, how's it changed how tell stories stuff? Are you, what percentage are you a hacker now versus a marketer?
Um, well, actually, so I've kind of changed in the last few months. So right now I'm 50% at Apify, but I also have my own AI company. Uh, Primarily, I am focused on building agents. So like with enterprise companies, I am kind of using everything that I know about Apify and of course some of the tools. So one thing that like last a few months ago, um, Apify tied up, facilitated by me with this huge logistics e-commerce company in Qatar, a regional in the GCC. So it's kind of given me two sides, right? On one side, um, I'm the AI evangelist at Apify, right? So I can interact with developers and work with the AI engineering team and product team and with the partners across the globe. On the other side, I have my own kind of company, and there's others that are joining me, where we're building kind of AI agents, mostly in enterprise, using Apify actors and MCP servers. So for example, for enrichment, which was a big use case, lead generation, social media monitoring, etc.
Yeah, super valuable. As I'm building up my startup now, and we have a 5-person engineering team, but I'm the entire sales and marketing and everything. And I had a roadmap where I was like going to hire and do this. We got our pre-seed, and I'm like, well, wait, no, I can do all of this, and I'm totally like scaling myself, and I don't think I'm going to need anybody for another year at least. I mean, we'll
Yeah,
see. Just because I'm able to automate and maximize and do things, but the enterprise is tough, when it comes to the agentic landscapes. And like, I mean, what are you seeing when it comes to enterprises, like in their appetite? Are they doing this internal? I mean, you don't have to name names or anything, but just like, are they more comfortable doing internal, like developer, agents on internal systems? Are they, doing it with their third party systems? Like, where's their appetite for agent investment?
yeah. So I think, well, luckily I have clients where the leadership is very AI kind of, let's say, um, they're pushing AI very aggressively. I think obviously there are kind of concerns with data security, especially in like in the GCC. So they tend to want to do things internally, but obviously they need kind of the external knowledge, and just because also in general building multi agents or agents inside enterprises is pretty new, so they always require like consultants to help them, right? But usually, yeah, people like to kind of, from a data residency point of view, keep everything inside. And especially now, because there's the big topic is, if you're sending training data to these models, but yeah, I mean, it's primarily kind of, they rely on consultants like me to help them with with the models, with the RAG pipelines, best practices when it comes to which tools or APIs to use, how do you conduct evals, but at the same time, building capacity inside their IT, their technology teams, just because they see it as existential, right? They need to build this out, and scale this up in the next few months, if or yeah, probably months, if they want to stay competitive.
Yeah. The like we building my startup, we started working with some larger consulting firms, EY, Accenture, and then some smaller ones, but then we've kind of switched to working with consultants groups that are kind of that model that Anthropic and others are, the forward deployment engineer kind of model. Is that what you
Yeah.
kind of consider yourself as? Is like you know Apify, you know Claude, and you can go in and help these enterprises make things happen?
Yes, exactly. That's a forward deployment model. I like that, actually. It's the first time I've heard of it, but it really sounds to me like yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just learned it last week. So like it's one of those new words that I'm right there with harness and other things that I'm throwing out there. And Anthropic and a couple others are doing it, but it's when I was at Postman, like you don't do consulting. You don't
Yeah.
help customers like because you have VC money. It's like if it's not scalable, you don't do it. But that's kind of switched. And I feel like people like you are pretty essential to enterprises being able to do this rapidly and the kind of old school consulting models going away. And you got to have people who are or know the tools, understand the current landscape, and then can come in and understand the business processes and build agents around that.
Yeah, exactly. So big thing I'm actually building is, so for example, right now, for their e-commerce or some of their freight and others, we built out some voice AI agents, and taking kind of their call center and transitioning it into voice, but also kind of, like every application that we build. So obviously custom applications now are the big thing, right? That's why a lot of the SaaS vendors are losing a lot of market share. But every custom application that we're building, we're making sure that every service is an API call, and that we have agents that can call that service, right? And and integrating it with whatever channels that they need. So it's for example, we have this, even at Apify, we're building this influencer platform. It's directly integrated to two or three agents, so people can, on Slack or whatever, on different Slack channels, um, connect directly with the application and do all kinds of things, right? Like, it's because it's integrated with three or four other tools. So I think that's going to be the next, or it's not, it already is the big thing, right? Where you're building custom solutions. Uh, all of the features in those solutions are an API. Agents are trained through MD files or Scales files to use those APIs, and everyone participates in the development of the solution and the features over time, right? I think that's a big reason why these SaaS models are kind of failing now, because they had to build kind of like platforms that everyone can use, that there was compatibility with a lot of use cases, but it was never specific enough. There were so many features you never required. But now, with obviously with vibe coding and with these, agentic models, it's no longer relevant, right? You can build your own custom platforms. Those custom platforms can have those APIs. Those APIs, uh, have these MD files on how to use them. They're shared within these agents. The agents are open to the users in that application, and the users themselves can actually bring in features that they want, and activate or deactivate features that they don't want. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And it's what I hear you, I mean, you came from marketing into engineering, but I heard a lot of business process and business awareness there. And I mean, that's kind of seems like the Venn diagram perfect balance of forward deployment engineer or somewhat, and what's your thoughts on kind of, all the rhetoric and hype around that AI is gonna, get rid of people and you're just gonna be able to automate all this. I mean, do you feel like, you know, being an engineer or you need to have more business skills and marketing, you need to be at that intersection, that Venn diagram? How do you see it?
Um, yeah, I mean, look, I think like at the end of the day, this has kind of been. I had the same question asked last year, and I think the models are great, right? But they still tend to hallucinate. There's still a lot of resistance from human users. I don't think the displacement will be as fast as people, or at least I thought by now, that most white collar jobs will just go away, but that hasn't been the case. But I do think that people like me who are let's say commercial or have a commercial background, because I worked in sales and marketing, so like all the whole kind of revenue operations funnel, right? And then who became technical, those in my viewpoint are probably the ones that are going to mint in this kind of environment, right? Because we have the, let's say, the business background, and then we became technical, and then we'll just rely on these AI agents to help us with code, right? um
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know, I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's why I left Postman, I would say, is to kind of API product managers was kind of the biggest need of the enterprises I was talking to. You need people who get products and aren't afraid of the technology, but I feel like that's escalated really fast and you just like the shit's got to make money is basically like you got to be able, it's got to be aligned with business outcomes and making money, and you got to be technical. It moves so fast, you got to work in both spaces.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So people are talking, the whole PM or product marketing or product manager roles are changing, right? People don't really talk about, features anymore, but it's more like, okay, what are the outcomes, right? That's the key part of it now. Because I think, if you look at the concept of features, it was more about, okay, I have a product, here are the features, here are the target market for these features, and here's the churn rate, and how much these features can influence our incremental income. But now it's like, okay, so if everyone can build their own software and tools, right? We don't really talk about features anymore, but we're just talking about, okay, what is the outcome? Like, how is this growing my top line or decreasing my bottom line? I think that's the biggest shift, at least in product marketing. I've been in kind of marketing, but primarily also product marketing, and we had features and user stories, but I don't think it's relevant anymore because everyone's just building their own custom softwares, especially in the enterprise and middle, let's say, medium sized companies. So I would say that's kind of the biggest shift that I've seen, is that going from feature centric to outcome centric.
Yeah, agreed.